Good afternoon, everyone. It is now about 6:02, and the September 13th Durant City Council meeting is now in session. Would everyone please stand while Chief David Hauser leads us in prayer, followed by Councilman Brittingham with our flag salute.
Please bow with me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for an awesome opportunity to come before you tonight, just seeking your guidance in the city's business. We thank you for the precepts and principles that you've laid out for civil government in your holy word. Lord, let us abide by those principles and precepts tonight as we conduct your business. In Jesus' name, Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. We have a pretty long agenda tonight, so we're going to get started. If our clerk would please call the roll.
Okay. Councilmember Brittingham.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Morris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Here.
Mayor Gruby.
Here. We all are here tonight, so we have a quorum. The first order of business is consent items. Items 1, which is A through J, are all consent items that can be approved as one, or can be, if anyone wants to pull any one of them out for discussion and vote, they can do so at this time. Do we have any kind of motion?
Make a motion to approve consent items A through J.
We have a motion. Actually, we have two motions. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Gruby.
Aye. Consent items are all approved. I would like to take just a second to recognize the folks who showed up from Big Five Community Services and from the Durant Historical Society. Thank y'all so much for being here tonight. Moving along under number 3, information items. If anyone has any questions, these are our city reports. You can ask at this time if any of the council has any questions. If not, we'll move on to item number 4 under administration. A, consider approval of resolution canvassing the results of the special election conducted in the city of Durant, Oklahoma on the 23rd day of August 2022 for the approval of ordinance number O-2022-15, granting a franchise to One Gas, Inc., acting by and through its Oklahoma Natural Gas Company division and its successors and assigns for the state for the sale, transportation, and distribution of the natural gas, and accepting the results of such special election and declaring the measure as passed. We have a motion.
I'll make the motion. We approve ordinance number 0.
We have a motion.
2022-15.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Gruby.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number B, and I believe Miss Danielle is going to present this. Hello, Miss Danielle.
Hello, good evening. This is a rezoning request. The item B is a rezoning request from I-1 to R3. The short version of this is the Planning Commission did recommend approval, for this item. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Staff has the applicant's also here if you have any questions for him. There was a little bit of opposition for this. We had a letter, or phone call rather, from a member of the area saying that they were opposed to this, and we only had one person speak at the Planning Commission meeting. Other than that, that was all that staff heard from.
Are there any questions for Ms. Danielle?
What was the citizens' opposition?
The opposition was in regards to the water line, sewer line, and traffic that would be created, and all of those items would be addressed at the time as further development occurs. They are already in conversation with staff from M&O, from Public Works, just across the board as far as improving the infrastructure. If any water lines need to be improved, sewer lines need to be improved, roads, things like that. They're already in conversations about what needs to be done, how it needs to be done for now and in the future.
I have a comment on that. SG Block people and us had a public meeting addressing any concerns, and the people that showed up seemed very pleased with the outcome, and they explained how that will be quite an improvement to the area, and thank you guys for coming.
Any other questions, any discussion? Looks like it's, if not, number 1 under ordinance O-2022-21, section 1. Call for a motion.
I make the motion we approve ordinance number O-2022-21, section 1.
We have a
Second.
motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Item B2, ordinance O-2022-21, section 2, emergency clause. Call for a motion.
I make a motion we approve the emergency clause of,
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Item C, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a planned unit development, PUD, for property located near Hillcrest Avenue and McLean, PC 2022-19. You again, Ms.
Me
Danielle.
again. I'll be here for a while. This is a planned unit development for a multifamily. This is for the entire 40-acre tract that SG Block is wanting to develop. They're wanting to do this in a couple different phases. Their plan is to have sidewalks, parking, and all that to meet the current regulation, including streetlights and all that. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this with the stipulation that the sole exemption from the ordinances only be to allow multiple buildings on one lot. So that there is that recommendation, and again, it was the same opposition as the previous case. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Any discussion? Call for a motion.
Make the motion we approve the PUD, the PC 2022-19.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Item 4D, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-22, a rezoning request from the R2 two-family residential district to the R3 general residential district for property located near South 12th Avenue and West Texas Street, PC 2022-20. Ms. Danielle.
There's a lot of twos in there. The applicant here is wanting to sell. There's 4 homes on 2 different lots. The applicant is wanting to separate the 2 lots into 4, and then basically have those homes sold. He came before the council before with just a replat under the R2 zoning, and that was denied. And so the applicant went back and had the lots redone to where they match the R3 zoning category, and they do. And then in the process, he's also asking for a rezoning. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this item, and there was no opposition or support either one.
Okay. That's 4D1, ordinance O-2022-22, section 1. Any discussion or questions for her, or we ready to call for a motion?
Make a motion to approve ordinance O 2022-22, section 1.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. 4D2, ordinance O-2022-22, section 2, emergency clause. Call for a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance O 2022-22, section 2, the emergency clause.
We have a motion. Call for a second.
Second.
We have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. 4E, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a replat request for property located near South 12th Avenue and West Texas Street, PC 2022-20.
And this again goes with the rezoning where they're just separating the two lots into 4. And Planning Commission again recommended approval of the item.
Any discussion or questions for Ms. Danielle? Call for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the replat request for property located South 12th Avenue and West Texas Street, PC 2022-20.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. 4F, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-23, a rezoning request from the A1 General Agricultural District to the R1 Single Family District for property located along Cemetery Road, PC-2022-21.
This is a rezone request for about 47 acres where they are wanting to build a subdivision in the future of single-family homes. They want to get the zoning right and then come back and figure out how they want to plat it out and make it and have it look. And so they'll have to come back and do platting at a later time before they can even sell it. It currently is zoned ag, and they're wanting to do residential. The area is also kind of that mixed area. Planning Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning.
F1 ordinance O-2022-23, section 1. Do we have a motion?
What was the Planning Commission's recommendation?
They recommended approval.
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. 4F2, ordinance O-2022-23, section 2, emergency clause. Call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the emergency clause.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. 4G, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-24, a rezoning request from the R1 Single Family Residential, C2 Highway Commercial and Commercial Recreation, and the I1 Light Industrial District to the C2 Highway Commercial and Commercial Recreation District for property located at 1903 North 1st Avenue, PC 2022-22.
A lot of words there. This one is just cleaning up a property that has multiple zones on one lot. And so they went to Planning Commission with the original ask of going to I-1. At the Planning Commission meeting, it was agreed upon to go to the C2 instead of I-1, simply for the reason that the Planning Commission was a little uncomfortable and it didn't actually meet the future land use map as far as the I-1 zoning goes. So the applicant and the Planning Commission agreed upon the C2 zoning, and that's what we're asking for this evening. So Planning Commission did recommend approval for the C2.
Any questions, discussion? Call for a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance O 2022-24, section 1.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 4G2, ordinance O-2022-24, section 2, emergency clause. Motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance O 2022-24, section 2.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank
For
you
now.
so much for you.
For now.
Okay. 4H. And Richard, is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll go ahead and read it, and then I'll, 4H, consider approval of Resolution C-2022-09, City of Durant Emergency Operations Plan Update for 2022-2023.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Just bringing this before y'all tonight. This is the 2022-2023 update that we have to do annually of the City of Durant's Emergency Operations Plan. Just tells who needs to do what and what needs to go where during the event of an emergency in the City of Durant.
Any questions for Mr. Richard?
No questions, Mayor, but just a point of clarification. In the agenda, the item is C 2022-09, which you accurately read. C typically indicates a contract, so that's probably just a Scrivener's error. It should be R, it should say R 2022-09, but I just wanted to clarify that this is not a contract, it's a resolution. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Okay. Call for motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2022-9, City of Durant Emergency Operations Plan Update for 2022-23.
We have a second.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, ma'am.
Item 4I, discussion, consideration, and possible action to accept the bid for Pepper Nut Lane road construction from J&L Paving. $480,172.05 with curb and gutter and thermal paint for stripes. 2, $373,082.83 without curb and gutter and regular striping paint. Hi.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. As you can see, the first bid you see is all the way, it's all city specs, spec'd out with curb and gutter and asphalt and thermoplastic painting. The second bid is without curb and gutter and regular street striping paint. So it's up to you, the council and you, what y'all want to do. The gentleman is here if y'all have any questions about what needs to be done.
Am I correct that 2 doesn't follow city ordinance, or it seems we really don't have a choice here for 1 or 2? 1 is what we require.
I agree.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we did pass an ordinance that to have curbs and gutters.
Yes, ma'am.
Any discussion? Steve, you look like you
I
want...
think that the discussion's been made.
Okay.
It's the only viable option.
Okay. Do we need to call for a motion? Y'all ready?
Make a motion to approve or accept the bid for Peppernut Lane Road reconstruction from J&L Paving, option 1, for $480,172.05 with curb and gutter and thermal paint for stripes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye?
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Carl. Okay, 4J, consider approval of resolution establishing certain speed limits on West Main Street, directing placement of signage, providing effective date R-2022-11. Ms. Lisa.
Yes, ma'am. This resolution would lower the speed limits between 49th Street and Sunny Meadows. Going the other direction, this is Main Street going east from Love's traffic signal to 49th. That will change the speed limit from 55 down to 45 miles per hour. Then from 49th to Sunny Meadows, changing that speed limit from 45 to 35 miles per hour. We did get a traffic study that was completed by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. I did receive that, I believe, on August the 18th. With a recommendation by Anthony E. Kelly from Oklahoma Department of Transportation that they have completed the study. The results should be considered informational and provided to the city for reference. Other considerations to establishing the posted speed limit, such as driveway density, and could result in a recommended posting that is lower than the measured 85th percentile. At this point, Department of Transportation will defer to the city's desired posting of the city's speed limits. We did not ask for emergency clause on this resolution because we feel there needs to be a little lead time to let the public know that the speed limit will be lowered in that area.
Any questions, discussion?
I would just ask that has the city attorney had an opportunity to look over this, and we're well within our limits, our rights to reduce it?
We are, and the statute does require, as the city manager indicated, that there is a traffic study to be done given that type of roadway and where it's located. That traffic study was done, and there's some variables that go in to the recommendations. Frankly, ODOT didn't necessarily recommend just on its face that the speed limits be lowered because of some of the criteria they use, but they did acknowledge that it was up to the city to lower that, and some of the criteria that they don't use may have been apparent out there, which is, driveway density, some other traffic patterns, major streets that spill out onto the road and things like that. So they didn't say that the speed limits couldn't be lowered. They said they would defer to the city. I think given this was brought up, and yes, I have looked at it. I actually drafted this based on some direction from the city manager, and this is something that's been in place been in the process for a while, even prior to the current city manager's tenure. So given the ongoing construction in the area and the continued traffic that's anticipated at some of those intersections and some of the private drives, that was the basis for this, and it fully complies with ODOT requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call for motion.
I move we approve resolution R-2022-11.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have 2 seconds. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 4K. Hi, Becca. Miss Becca, hadn't seen you in a while.
Since last time. Thank you.
Okay, let me read this. I'm gonna get to read it before you get up here. Number K, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the brush chipper equipment purchase from Vermeer Great Plains in the amount of $69,824.18 plus a 3-year extended warranty for a total project cost of $78,881.18. C-2022-55 chipper with $25,000 funded through the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, Solid Waste Reimbursement Contract 103898, C-2022-55 GC to purchase brush chipper equipment.
Okay, thank you. In May, the city received the $25,000 grant from Department of Environmental Quality, and this was a piece of equipment that the landfill greatly needs to be able to meet the DEQ criteria. And the great thing about this, which doesn't normally happen, this equipment went down $20,000 since we applied.
Oh.
So it's phenomenal. Yes, it is. And so part of the grant, part of the project will be funded by the $25,000, and the balance of that would be from DCUA funding.
Thank you.
And I didn't know if you had any questions from Kenny for the project or the equipment, what it'd be used for, or anything. So.
I think Kenny can verify that it is well needed.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Do we know how long it'll be before we can purchase that, given the backlog of so much equipment?
Well, we can purchase immediately.
Oh, let me rephrase. How quickly can we receive the product?
Well, this quote does expire on the 23rd, so we will be pursuing forward tomorrow. The actual grant contract in the contract said, due to supply chain, order immediately. And of course, they're saying there's no extension to the grant, but we have to move forward and hope for the best. Okay?
Thank you. Any questions? In other words, Ms. Becca, we don't know when. It could be months.
Right.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Any questions? Call for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the brush chipper equipment purchase from Vermeer Great Plains in the amount of $69,824.18 plus a 3-year extended warranty for a total project cost of $78,881.18. C-2022-55 chipper.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Gooby.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 4, L, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the updated architectural plans for city staff to proceed with procurement to complete the Donald W. Reynolds Library drive-through funded by 18114 CDBG-CR20 Coronavirus Response Project pending release of funds approval by Oklahoma Department of Commerce, C-2021-19.
Yes, and this is a project that was identified in the change of scope with the balance of the funding that we had, the $600,000. And Shane Knight is here, and I provided the plans, which I see up on the screen, of what is proposed. Since those were developed, though, Robbie Tunneby with the library has asked that the canopy be extended to cover both of the book drop-off boxes. And so Shane is still working on getting the pricing of what it would cost to extend those, or extend that canopy. There is funding available. The original estimate for the entire project was $70,000, and we do have some other COVID money that was originally identified for the drive-through, so we'll be fine on that. But I wanted the council to see the plans, and then I brought the the larger ones that are over there on the desk. This is something that, as stated in the agenda item, that we have to wait on Department of Commerce to give us the release of funds before we can proceed with procurement. But I wanted you to make a motion to accept the plans with the additional length of the canopy.
Any questions?
If you agree with that.
Any questions for Ms. Beckley? Any discussion? Call for motion.
Make a motion to approve. I make a motion to approve the updated architectural plans for city staff to proceed with procurement to complete the Donald W. Reynolds Library drive-through funded by 18114 CDBG-CR 2020. And it's in reference to the update to extending the canopy to cover the 2 drop boxes for books.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Number 4.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Number 4M, consider approval of federal aid railroad project agreement STP-207B 115 RRJP number 3593226 at the AT grade crossing of the Comanche Railroad at North 49th Street in Durant, Bryan County, Oklahoma, DOT number 671534T, by and between the City of Durant and the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, C-2022-63. Miss Lisa?
That was a mouthful. So this project has been in the works for several months. Our former city manager had been working on this. This is the railroad crossing along 49th. It currently has no arms. The gates. Thank you, Mike. Mike corrected me the other day. So it currently has no gates or anything. So this total project costs, in partnership with the Department of Transportation and the railroad company, total project cost is $662,252. There is a match required from the city, and that match is $32,350. So we will get a new approach and the rail crossing with the gates if this is approved.
Any discussion? Call for motion.
I move we approve the federal aid railroad project agreement STP-207B 115RR JP number 3593226 at the Comanche 49th Street Railroad crossing, DOT number 671534T, contract C-2022-63. Is that the right word? Is that a contract, Tom?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller. Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. 4N, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-19, amending and updating sections of Chapter 96, Animals of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Durant, Oklahoma. Oh, hi again.
Hi again. This is a ordinance that we had before us in August, and we took no action at that time. This is, the ordinance is to basically have to where you can have FFA and 4-H show animals, and then it also addresses chickens. We put some wording in there that was taken from different cities and kind of amended it to where it would fit our verbiage. Before you have this evening We added an extra line in there that was not on the online packet, so it's highlighted on the next to the last page, and that line was no manure shall be placed within a City of Durant polycart or dumpster. And so we added that in there just to kind of keep our city crews from having to pick up manure within the polycarts or dumpsters. Then I also put before you the current ordinance, just in case you wanted to look at that this evening, can compare the two. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have some questions.
All right.
We'll start with 96.005.
Okay.
I guess maybe clarification more than anything,
Sure.
because this carries over to the next one as well. It says under A, no person shall keep, harbor, possess, maintain one or more domesticated farm animals per acre unless otherwise stated herein. And of course, it gives a definition of domesticated animals. So the way I understand this is that the exception to that is 1, 2, and 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. 1 is unplatted agricultural tracts, which meet all the requirements in agricultural zoning, which is 5 acres or more.
Correct.
I get that. I'm gonna jump to 3. It says as part of a normal business operation of a licensed vet or animal hospital. I get that.
Okay.
Number 2 says as a FFA or 4-H show animal under the supervision of the county livestock agent or licensed agricultural education instructor for exhibition purposes only. My question is, or clarification, A says 1 animal per acre. 1 says comply with ag. 3 says a vet. 2, the way I read it, says that if you have one of these individuals sign off that it's an FFA or a 4-H animal, as in a cow, pig, or any of the other animals you've designated, they can be placed anywhere in the city of Durant.
Correct. So to give you some clarification, I talked with the FFA instructor for the Durant School District. They currently have show animals within the school boundaries, which is including the city of Durant. They show cows, pigs, goats, and one other. But they do show those animals, and they actually have some within the city limits. They've had some animal control on them recently, and some that we probably don't know about, to be honest. Whenever we talked with the FFA instructor, typically they're only allowed to have 1 show animal per school year. Now, in the 4-H side of things, I'm not sure. It's been a year since I've been in 4-H, and I'm not sure how Bryan County is. But whenever I was in 4-H, typically you're only going to have maybe 1 or 2 show animals, just because there are a lot of upkeep to keep of and keep track of. But we can change that if that's something that the council would like.
I guess as an example, if I have a house and I live in R1 or 2 and I'm on a 9,000 square foot lot and I have 2,000 square feet in my backyard fenced in, according to this ordinance and the way it's written, I can stick a cow back there if I have a child in school that wants to show it. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah.
Or all 3 of your kids.
Or all 3 of my kids?
Could have a cow and a goat and a sheep.
Twice a year, I think you said.
Yeah.
I have an issue with that.
Yeah. I can definitely understand that too. I can.
I'm not so sure. Something needs to be reworked. I don't know how you address that and how you fix it. I don't know, Tom, if you have any suggestions, or if there are any.
I mean, it certainly may be reworked. I don't have any suggestions. That's not really this is a policy matter, so but if the council wants to go back to the drawing board on it and rework that, certainly there's language that could be made to work. But ultimately, I think clearly the intent is to allow FFA show animals on a city lot.
Correct. That's correct.
We may come back to that.
That's fine.
Let's go to the chickens.
Okay,
Yeah.
that there's so much written about the chickens all of a sudden.
okay.
What brought about the chicken ordinance update?
So what brought that about was primarily when we was talking with staff about updating about the 4-H animals and the FFA animals, there was a lot of confusion about how chickens were supposed to be handled. And so whenever previous city manager and I had this conversation, it was, well, why don't we go ahead and include something in there to lessen the confusion among staff. And so that's where that came from, is just kind of putting some language in there, having that verbiage about the number of chickens and things like that.
Okay. Why not ducks? Or rabbits? Or geese? I mean,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but other
Right.
animals are showed and raised in the city limits.
Right.
So I feel like there may be more to that. I mean, I know the previous ordinance clearly specified fowl, which covers pretty much the majority of whether it's land fowl or waterfowl. I'm just not sure why we didn't go that direction to cover all the birds of sort.
Right.
Is the first question. And then the other one is, how are you going to, if we pass this in whatever form, how are you going to, because it says 4 chickens, 4 laying hens, right? And no roosters,
Right.
which I think is great. I mean, I've experienced that myself in the city limits. How are you going to grandfather in, and what are you not going to grandfather? How are you going to know that?
And that's something that we had a conversation about on a staff level as far as how that would work. I go to your first question, though. Your first question, as far as on the show birds, that would be handled under that 4-H and FFA animals, the show animals. That would be where that would fall under, because they still have to, the exhibitor still has to prove that they are, and they still have to sign off saying that they are a show bird, because there's a lot of fowl that is not show. They don't show them. Although I've learned that there's quite a bit of showbirds around the Bryan County area. So, and again, that we can, if there's some verbiage that council needs to be, that we're not comfortable with, or we need to go back to the drawing board, we certainly can do that. And then to the second question, how that is enforced, the biggest thing is a lot of it is complaint driven, to be honest. Now if code enforcement's out on another complaint, then yeah, they can have every right to sit there and look and say, oh, well, you are over the number of allotted chickens or that, but they can't go onto somebody's property. At least code enforcement cannot. Animal control has a few different rules and regulations than what code enforcement does, but code enforcement can't just go onto somebody's property. They have to do everything from a street right of way or an alley unless they're invited. So that's kind of that's piece of it. And as far as how do we sit there and grandfathered in, again, that's something that the council can decide. We can add a piece in here to say, or we don't adopt the emergency clause and give people 30 days to come into compliance, or we could create another piece with Tom's assistance of saying that you have from this date forward to come into compliance. It's a couple of different ways of doing that. Or if we wanted to do it immediately, then I'm sure animal control would be willing to give them a little bit of time regardless to come into compliance, because we understand that this is new and not everybody's going to be knowing that it's going to affect them.
Well, I think it needs to be addressed in some form, whether any of those you suggested, before you can proceed. I mean, because you're not going to ever know.
Right. Yep.
If it's complaint driven and you go out and say, well, I had those. Chickens live a while.
Yeah, they do.
We can't wait 6 months and then start fresh. But
Correct.
Just out of curiosity, how many citations have been written for chickens large?
I don't believe we've had any citations written for chickens at large. I do know that we've picked up a few chickens in the last few months, and I know that we've had a few chicken complaints. They've talked to them and told them either they couldn't have them, or if it was an ag property, then they told them that they probably need to keep them cooped up.
I personally have issues with this in its present form. I don't know what it is to fix it, and
I think maybe having permits or something issued where we can kind of keep track of it and have like a minimum on maybe the square footage, where he's saying where 2 or 3 kids can't have a cow each back there on 1,000 square foot little piece, to where maybe there might be some minimum square footage listed and maybe permits issued to where we can keep track of it better.
And I will say, the FFA instructor will have to be the one to say whether or not a kid can show an animal. And from my experience, your FFA instructor is going to know what's best for that animal. And they're not going to say, oh, well, you live on 1,000 square foot lot, so you can have 2 cows, because that may not be what's best for the animal. That's my personal opinion. I may be wrong in that matter, but I see where you're coming from, because I definitely want what's best for the animal, and we don't need, 2 or 3 cows or 2 or 3 goats or whatever. We need to look at that too. But
It sounds like that you're not comfortable, and you're not comfortable, so should we maybe table this? Do we have a motion as to what?
Madam Mayor, if I'd suggest if you table it, it's going to have to come back in the exact same form it is tonight. That may be no action.
Then we will do no action.
That's your choice.
Well, I don't want it to come back like it is and go through this.
No, ma'am, I don't either.
We don't, this is the second time we've been through this, so if no action, if that's well, let's just do no action.
Should we have a plan on how we're going to fix it between now and next month? Who's going to do it?
I think that's going to have to be a staff issue. They could probably ask the council if that's their thoughts, but ultimately the staff, I think, would have to be the ones that prepare it.
I just don't want to drag it out for a year, you know what I mean?
I don't either. I agree.
Right. We can no action with, I guess we can request that you come back next month with a plan that's suitable, and you might touch bases with these councilmen, or maybe let us all look at it before you bring it to us or whatever.
Certainly.
Is that acceptable?
Yes. Thank you for entertaining me.
You're very welcome.
So that would be no action on item
Thank you.
4N. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
Number 4O, discussion regarding the university construction project. Mr. Brandon Wall, our city engineer, it's good to see you. I hadn't seen you in a while.
See you, Mayor.
Brandon.
Thank you. We're here to provide an update on the University Street project, University Boulevard project. As you guys are all aware, time expired yesterday on the project. That includes all the extensions that have been granted by City Council through change order. So the project time would be at its completion at this point. The project's approximately, money-wise, about 30% complete. Most of that's in underground utilities. The actual paving portion of the project is, as you know, is a lot less state of completion than that. So we're here just to answer any questions that the city has about the project at this point. If you want to talk options about moving forward, that's probably a city attorney question at this point. And just answer any questions that you guys have concerning the project.
Are they still working today? I thought I saw a couple of guys out there this morning. Have they been told to stop at the end of yesterday? Or are they still working, or what's going on out there today?
They will continue to work unless given a stop work order or some other action by the city. Now, by the contract, liquidated damages would begin accruing today. We were provided an updated schedule from the contractor. We've been asking for about 2 months for an updated schedule. We did receive one today about 1:30 this afternoon showing a completion date of December the 27th as the current stated completion date.
December 27th?
December 27th. We've not had a chance yet to review the contract or review the schedule and see if that even looks doable at this point. Based on previous rate of construction, we'd have to take a serious look at that, but that is stated completion date right now is December the 27th.
Is that this year?
This year.
What is the issue? Does the contractor have too many other jobs, not enough men, or what's the delay?
What's their excuse? That's what I'd like to know.
So let me kind of step in on that. I don't want Brandon to have to give anything other than the kind of factual updates. We did meet with the contractor briefly yesterday, and there's some indication, the city's got some options. There's potential legal action. There is getting with the bonding company. The bonding company may have the option to step in and ensure that it gets completed by whatever means necessary, whether that's hiring someone else or whatever, but the bonding company may be on the hook. As Brandon alluded to, there's a liquidated damages provision in the contract. Just because we get to the contract date doesn't mean they have to stop. It just means that each day going forward, they may owe liquidated damages for each day that they proceed past that deadline day. So, but the contractors also indicated that they may have legal counsel getting involved. So what I don't want to see tonight, I want to see an update, sort of the possibilities or the options of a path forward, but I don't think we need to turn into a debate or get into speculation as to why things have gone the way they've gone. That's probably something we need to take up with the contractor's legal counsel at the appropriate time. There is some progress that is being made. Obviously, it's slower than it should have been. I think that's what the general consensus is, that it's slower than it should have been because the contract date was yesterday and it's still not anywhere close to completion. So we have, as Brandon has told the council before, it was readily apparent leading up to the contract date that it wasn't likely to be done on time. But until that date arrives, there's really nothing that we could have done. The contractor has until the deadline day to get it done. So if conceivably they could have waited until the last week and pulled off a miracle and gotten it done on time, that didn't happen. So we're exploring the options now of either completing it with the existing contractor or taking other actions to ensure that it gets done. Obviously, the taxpayers deserve a timely completion, which hasn't been done, but they also need to get their money's worth out of it.
I've been asked by many people, how are we going to get the street built? And they want an answer today. So I would like to kind of at least discuss some options if we could right here, right now. Can we do that?
I think you have, so first off, the project's guaranteed by a bond and a bonding company. And this is, it's a major bonding company that guarantees these types of projects. So the project's going to get completed in accordance with the plans and specs.
From your experience, do you have any idea? I mean, suppose we have to go that route. Are we looking at weeks or months or what? Do we even know?
On the projects we've been involved in that were turned over to the bonding company, they immediately step in because they're facing the same liquidated damages that the contractor would face, and they're trying to mitigate their damage. So typically a bonding company would step in immediately and take the project over if that's the direction of the city and your council.
It almost sounds like it might be best to let the bonding company take over, doesn't it, in that scenario? We know what these people haven't done, and if the bonding company, are we the ones that would make the decision on whether to let the bonding company take over or let these people complete it, or is that a council decision? I guess that's what you're asking, Mike.
That would probably be...
I'm 100% against letting this company stay on the job and promise us a December 27th date, because I don't think it'll happen. And if that doesn't happen, I don't want to be crucified by my constituents.
And I'd probably defer to Tom on that, but at the point where the contract has been breached or there hasn't been, there's language in the contract about a breach or about non-performance that would allow you guys to take action.
That's something, Brandon's right, there are options. There's not just one option, but that's something that, given that the contract date wasn't until yesterday, that's something that we need to explore the options, speak with the bonding company, speak with possibly the legal counsel for the contractor, and get a recommended course of action by staff and bring that back to the council, and we could do that either at a special meeting or something like that. I don't think we would have to wait until the October meeting to get that done, but either way, whatever the course of action, we're likely still looking at months for the completion of the project, just given the status that it's in right now.
I get that, but I don't want to add weeks to it, sitting here waiting for something to happen, is what I'm saying. We need to make something happen tomorrow.
How much of an extension was already given to this company?
I can answer that. It's like 96 days.
Could we make a motion tonight to have a meeting between the parties involved and have a special meeting and come back to the special meeting with a solution to how we're going to handle it? Because we could have would that be something feasible?
I don't think that's an action item. I think that staff can have that meeting and make that decision and come back, and then between you and the city manager can call that special meeting.
Is that not what happened yesterday? The meeting with the contractor and us by telephone?
That was that meeting. I don't think that was a meeting where we reached many decisions. It was really more of a status update, and at the time we didn't have some of the things that we have now. Frankly, we didn't have a construction schedule. We didn't have some of the things that we have now. There's probably more things that we need to have. I would like to get the bonding company involved to see kind of what their status is before we make that decision. I have reached out to the bonding company. I haven't heard back. I sent them a letter at the same time I sent the construction company a letter last week.
That's not a good sign, in my opinion, if you can't get a hold of the bonding company, especially if they're a big reputable company.
Well,
I don't get it.
I sent it just to their general address that they have, so it could take a while to work its way up, and certainly if there's a claim made, they will step in. I'm confident that they would step in if there's an actual claim made for their performance. This was just sort of a warning, hey, we're getting close to the end of this project and it's not close. So they've not been officially put on notice that we're asking them to step in or call in the bond.
Madam Mayor, I just would ask that if you're going to direct staff to try to resolve this as soon as possible, whether it's through the bonding company, the city attorney, or whatever, that would follow Councilman Morris's advice and our recommendation that we have a special meeting as soon as legally possible.
I think that would be the best solution, and then we could decide, do we just need to, that's not on the, well, it is kind of on the agenda. Do we need to go ahead and vote on that, Tom?
No, it's not an action item tonight. I think staff can just take the council's direction. This was on as a discussion item just to kind of bring everyone up to speed. So there's not really an action item to be had. But then, tomorrow you and the city manager can sit down and decide when a special meeting is warranted, and as long as you maintain the statutory timelines, you could call that as soon as the end of the week or the beginning of next week.
Everybody agreeable with that?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Brandon. We now move into the public's hearing section, and I don't believe we have to have a motion for this, do we? Tom?
No.
Okay, we're now in the public hearing section, 5A, Proposed 2022 Land and Water Conservation Fund, LWCF Grant Application. Number one, public hearing for the 2022 LWCF application phase. Who's going to speak on that?
Me, I'm sorry.
Okay, Ms. Becca.
Okay, good evening, thank you. We have identified some projects for a land and water grant that is funded through the Oklahoma Tourism and Recreation Department, which is on the national level. The funding actually comes from the National Park Association. and it's a very competitive grant, and we have had several successful projects in the past. With the most recent one, Carl Albert project, had funding from this same grant, and through Ryan's parks that he's identified, and because we are allowed to apply for more than one park within one application, he has identified improvements to Billy Miller Park, Carl Albert, Dixon Park, or locally known as Rocket Park, and then Lloyd Plyler Park. And I actually, Byron, I gave him the budget and some maps, and I'm going to give each of you a copy of the budget.
Thank you.
So let me talk just a little bit, though, about the funding as part of the public hearing. The purpose of the project is identified in the Oklahoma State recreational plan called the SCORP. And any project that you apply for through Land and Water has to meet the priorities and the goals of that plan. And one of their main, or a couple of their main purposes is to create outdoor recreation that helps encourage healthy lifestyles, outdoor physical activities. And so we would meet those priorities through this application. And did you find the? Okay, so we have the budget. Let's look at the maps first, if you wouldn't mind, Byron. The first one being Billy Miller, and we'll let Ryan talk about the priorities that he's identified in that park.
So with Billy Miller Park, we in 2015 had a flood, and it wiped out Billy Miller 3's fence, and it shorted out the wiring for the field lights. So I have identified and how much feet it would linear feet for the fence, and what field lights that need to be replaced, which since those were there when the park was originally built, they all really need to be replaced. And I'm working with getting quotes for that. So we'll have to do that, plus we'll have to, on the ground wire, all ground wire in the park, will bury it, so there will be no overhead wiring in the parks. And then Carl Albert Park. We received DCFA funding for this park to put in new street lamps. For the walking trail, we'll have 5 lamps around that walking trail that will be LED solar panel, so we won't have to do any ground wiring. We pretty much just got to dig a hole, put a pole in, put the light on it. And the same kind of lighting will go around the pool parking lot, and we're also going to repave the east and west parking lots on the south end, and we're going to try to close that road in between so kids can travel from one playground to the other safely. And Dixon Durant, this is another DCFA funded project, and we are going to replace the pavilion on the south end. The foundation for that concrete has cracked severely. We are going to have to pretty much demolish the whole thing and rebuild and put a shade structure there. And then next to the ADA swing that was donated, there's another pad that was supposed to have a shade structure, never got put a shade structure, so I'm actually going to put one on there. And again, more street lamps around on existing poles already to help with vandalism and to help provide safety for people that want to walk at night when it's 100 and something degrees outside.
You might also mention for Dixon what the Rotary Club is doing.
Oh yes, the Rotary Club is giving us a donation to put in a fitness park at that location. I don't have it marked on there, but pretty much parallel to the middle tennis courts on the inside of that walking trail. It's a flat area, so we'll have a fitness park where people that are walking, if they want to do plyometrics or pull-ups and all that, we'll have a station there for them to do that. And we'll also have some new tables and stuff underneath all the pavilions. And finally, Lloyd Plyler Park, that will be our biggest expense. We are going to replace the current playground structure that is there. The current structure is a 5 to 12-year-old age range structure that is a capacity of maybe 25 to 30. I'm having to guesstimate just off the size because the structure is so old, there's no description of it on it anymore. So I'm looking at replacing it with a structure that is from 2 years old to 12 years old and can fit up to 100 kids. Because that park, if you have been in Durant Long, and is filled up during this fall and spring for t-ball, and they'll have practices and games there every night. And as a parent of a kid that is fairly young in that age grade, you have a kid that wants to go play on that playground. So getting them something to do is our goal. We are also working on, we received a grant to extend that sidewalk all the way around the park, and additional parking, is that what that grant? No, just the sidewalk?
Will just be to extend the north
And the, yep. And with this land and water grant, there's a power line on the east side that we'll have to put underground most likely. Or I'm going to look into pricing and trying to get it underground, so it'll be out of the way of everything. Any questions?
Would like to talk about the budget just a minute. We've identified funding that is available from different sources, and so we are not here to ask for any additional funding from the city or from the budget. And so there's no max or minimum amount on the land and water grants. It's just a dollar for dollar match. And it does not have to be all cash, but it's just fortunate that we do have money that was already identified for these projects, so it will help us compete. And so this budget that you're looking at is approximate. Will not be any more than $200,000 cash match. The in-kind labor and equipment, we're still tweaking on that. For instance, once the field at Billy Miller is complete, or the items, the fencing and the lighting, parks are going to have to develop that field. So there's your labor and equipment, probably some dirt work, right?
Yep. Dirt work, anchors.
Yeah, so we've got to figure out that, and so that will add to our labor and equipment, and I assure you I will not pad it because it's extremely difficult to track labor and equipment. So, and so right now the grant is approximately going to be, that we're going to request, is a $219,625. So we're going to stay within the money. Any questions?
I have at Lloyd Plyler, I would like to see the structure actually completed. There's originally were going to be some archways over there, and they look like they started up.
They should have it.
And they were not even painted, yeah.
Well, and that park was recreated with 2 different grants, and those archways were never part of either of those plans. I think that was a former park director's idea, and so I don't know.
I think it'd look
what
nice
happened.
if we could complete it.
Okay.
It looks like we need to approve this budget.
Would you mind if we close? Oh, and I need to say, if
Let's go on and then we'll close it and vote.
Did you mention the public hearing at the beginning? I apologize.
I did. Yes, I did.
Okay, so if the public doesn't have any questions or any comments, then we could close that and then go to the action items. if you wouldn't mind, Mayor. And then just, if I could ask everyone that has not, to make sure you've signed the sign-in sheet. Okay?
Okay. I guess we can go because there's no one that looks like they have anything they want to say about it.
Okay.
I guess we then just can move on to the voting part. Is that?
Or, yes, close
The
it,
action-
close the public?
Close,
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
close it.
Mhm.
Okay, we're now closed. The public hearing is now closed.
Okay.
And 2 is discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the project budget for the 2022 LWCF grant application.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the project budget for 2022 LWCF grant application.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Okay. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Brittingham,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Number 5.3 under the public hearing, authorization for the mayor or vice mayor to sign 2022 LWCF application documentation. Motion?
Motion to approve for the mayor or vice mayor to sign 2022 LWCF application documentation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Number 4, discussion, consideration, and possible action to authorize city staff to prepare and submit the 2022 LWCF grant application. Motion.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize city staff to prepare and submit the 2022 LWCF grant application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Thank y'all both.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 6, executive session. A, consider entering into executive session to discuss collective bargaining agreement between the City of Durant and the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 113 for 2023 C-2022-62. This executive session permitted under 25 OS 307B2. We will now recess into executive session.
Motion. You have to have a motion.
We don't need a motion, do
Yeah, you have to have a motion to go into executive session and then come back.
we? Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to enter executive session.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham. Is that a yes? Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, we're now entering executive session. Find out where we are. No vote on this, right? We don't vote? Okay. Okay, we will now reconvene out of executive session. And item 6B, consider action pursuant to executive session item 6A. Need a motion.
I move we authorize the interim city manager to approve the contract with the Fraternal Order of Police with the current terms adopted by the FOP.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 7, new business. There's no new business. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Brittingham.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. We are now adjourned out of the city council meeting, and it is now... Okay, sorry.
It's okay. It won't take me a second.
Okay. I'm not, wait a minute. I don't even need this, I don't guess. Are we ready, Cindy?
You ready, Byron? Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, it is now 7:47, and, boy, that's an airplane. How about that? Wish it was. It is now 7:47, and the Durant Airport Authority is now in session. Call to order. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Here.
Chairman Groby.
Here. Number 1, under consent items, we have one item, number A, consider approval of regular meeting minutes of August 9th, 2022. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent item.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Aye.
Chairman Groby.
Aye. Item number 3, information items. Do we have an airport manager's report? How are you?
I'm doing good, yourself?
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Best last.
Good evening. I wanted to start by giving a state of the airport. And I had a little show and tell. Started on August 31st, 2020. That was the tool we had at the airport. We now have a full maintenance hangar full of equipment. We're running a full FBO, but I just want to kind of give you the change and what's going on now versus what it was like then. Currently, if you look at the packet, there's a chart for the second and the third page. We've had probably 5 record months this year. And the month of August of 2022, we had $152,776.69 in fuel sales alone, not counting the, any of the hangar revenue, area back, and any of that. I wanted to kind of refer to the graphs, and you can get an idea on the third page where it gives you 2021 and 2022. We didn't even put 2020 in this. You wouldn't see it on the chart. And it gives you an idea of the gallons versus the retail sales amount and the actual gain potential that we're possibly going to have versus what we're actually having. We're growing at such a substantial rate right now. We're at 540% increase over the numbers from 2020. The one thing that I really wanted to stress is with that growth has a requirement for a lot of management, a lot of employees and staffing. And as part of that, I wanted to talk about the current state of where we're at with some of the equipment. We purchased a lav cart. A lav cart is basically like an RV trailer dump station. We get calls for aircraft when they come in, they want us to dump all their residue and take it to a dump station. We're now in the middle of beginning training on that to make sure we have all the PPEs and a place to dump the waste and everything else, but it's an added revenue source. Our flight training is really blossoming. So we have the college, we have 2 different private companies doing a lot of private flight training. That is really the one that is growing substantially because we also have the You Can Fly program in the high school. We've got students already starting to fly that are in that program. I think it's an awesome program. We're looking at, starting an endowment trust fund. I know the Choctaw Nation is interested in putting money in that. I firmly believe that before this is all said and done, the kids out of the high school won't have to spend any money to get their pilot's license. And that's where I see, and it's not only that, it's going to attract the attention to the airlines because with enough hours, they need pipelines. The airlines are struggling so much for pilots. I want to go back just for a second to a recommendation I've got on this manager's report. I feel strongly that we have a great consultant. The KSA Consulting and Engineering Company is going to be a great benefit to the city of Durant. They have a lot of knowledge. They work with the FAA daily. They bring a lot of credibility to the airport. They also bring a lot of knowledge to the director and all the staffing and to the city council. And the recommendation I would make would be that the council and the airport authority consider going into a workshop with the KSA to get deeper into what goes on in an airport, what are the requirements with the federal government, with the grant assurance requirements. I'm sure a lot of people here have heard me talking about it. I firmly believe, and this is cold hard fact, that we're not following the guidelines completely. Now, I want you to know, I believe that Becca, she does an awesome job. I think her job is what helps keep us out of trouble. The problem is a lack of knowledge within, the city staff themselves in how they operate with the airport and with the airport authority. This is not something I'm wanting to beat everybody up on. This is something that I have been pushing for to save, protect, and keep the city of Durant out of a compliance problem. because the FAA is currently in the state of Oklahoma going airport to airport on CARES Act grant compliance checks. The FAA's been very clear with me on it. They're very clear on how they operate. They come to the airport director and they start asking questions and want to see the results. And I really would love to see us go to that step to make sure we don't end up in a problem, because when the FAA shows up on those kind of compliance checks, these aren't $1,000 fines. These are $25 million fines over money over the last 20 years that we've received through grant assurances. And I have been an advocate of Durant and an advocate of the airport and the airport authority for a little over 2 years. And at this point, I am tired of fighting City Hall. And I don't know another way to put it. Yeah, and at this time, I would like to hand out some resignation.
Got awfully quiet in here.
I was just letting them read. I didn't want to read it out loud if they were reading it, so.
I just don't, I don't really think it's appropriate to hand your resignation in when you give a report.
Yeah, Mayor, I was about to say the same thing. I believe this probably goes beyond the scope of the airport manager's report. If you're resigning, then you're no longer the airport manager. So I think this probably goes beyond the scope of the report of the state of the airport. So that would be my recommendation.
So I guess I'm done?
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
There's nothing under administration, nothing under new business. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Would the secretary please record the vote?
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Aye.
Chairman Groby.
Aye. We are now adjourned out of the Airport Authority. It is 7:58. I'm sorry, Sandy. Just yell when you're ready. Sorry. Ready? Okay, it is now 7:59 and the City Utility Authority is now called to order. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Here.
Chairman Groby.
Here. Order of business, consent items. Number A, consider approval of regular meeting minutes of August 9, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve consent items.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Call the roll, please. Or vote.
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Aye.
Chairman Groby.
Aye. Motion Passes. Number 1B, consider approval of special call meeting minutes of August 31st, 2022.
That was part of the consent.
Pardon?
That was part of the consent.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, so, moving right along, under administration, number 4. A, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a sewer line extension
Councilman, Mayor.
Hello, how are you? Please
Good.
state your name.
Randy Cantrell.
No, Randy. I'm sorry, Randy.
That's all right. Okay, back in August of 2021, Mike had done a subdivision and built some duplexes on a property at 5916 Wilson, and he paid to extend the sewer line beyond the city limits to tie these duplexes onto the city sewer. Since he's put this sewer line in, I have looked over his utility bills, and he has auto draft. He's never been late or anything on this, but he's wanting to add more duplexes to this utility line that he's already paid to install. And he's wanting to add a leg to cover some of those duplexes. With it being out of city limits, I figured, you know, since y'all passed the resolution to where you have to get council approval, even though it's on private property and it's a private utility line, that he still needed to come and speak to y'all about adding more duplexes onto that line and extending that line a little bit further to catch the other duplexes.
Would that be new duplexes or existing duplexes?
It's new duplexes.
So they don't yet exist, right?
Do what?
They don't yet exist, right?
They do not. One part of the line does exist that some of these are going to tie onto, and then there's the diagram. Scroll back up, if you would, please. See the ones that's already there? There's a sewer line that comes up behind those that those tie into, and he's wanting to bring it back to the east and extend it north to catch that east side of the property.
Aren't there 2 rows of those already?
It's just one row right now. This is a line that's extended from Remington Hills and comes up onto Wilson and crosses over and extends north into his property.
And so he's wanting to tie on to the line that he's already extended over there, or do a new tap?
Yes, he's wanting to add just a leg off of it to catch that east side of that property that he's developed.
Is the duplex already built or in the process of being built?
The new one, papers process to bed. As soon as I have approval, I'll go start on it.
I guess that was my question. I want to be sure I understand. We're asking about duplexes that are sitting there waiting for sewer, or are they not, nothing there yet?
There are 9 units out there right now that are tied to this sewer line.
Yes.
If I understand correctly, you're just wanting to propose 9 more duplexes to add to that.
To that, yes.
It's my feelings that we're not charging enough for these to have sewer service. We don't collect water, and we don't do trash service. And the cost of putting in an aerobic system is much more. I think our rates should be much higher than what they are. for out of city limits, out of, the only thing we're doing is we're taking their sewer, okay? I think our rates should be quite a bit higher than what they are.
Well, we did pass a resolution not to let any more people tie into city.
We seem to have a problem with enforcing. We can't, the rural water departments
They won't make them pay the bill.
won't make them pay the bill, anything, so.
Could someone refresh my memory? When we made that ordinance that county properties cannot hook in, was there a caveat that the council could allow that?
I'm sorry, Mike, say that again.
I believe so. I don't have the text of the ordinance right in front of me, but I believe it was that before anyone outside the city limits could tap into the city sewer, that it had to come before the council. There was an incident along Mockingbird where city staff approved a tap, and so I think that was the response to that, was that anything outside of the city limits had to come before council, but council could approve.
And this property in question is in the county, not the city, correct?
Right.
That's correct.
Right, and he's already got an account. It's not gonna be a new account. It's just adding more usage on this account. So his utility bill will go up per se.
But he's on rural water 2.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
means that they do not force anyone. They will
Right.
not force them to pay sewer.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify that the incident that council was talking about was in the fall of last year. I believe that prompted the resolution or the ordinance that we did. This one was approved in the fall of last year.
Yes.
Which means it was approved by city employees and not by this council. And back then, I've read a couple of emails, I guess, from the city manager, and there were no promises made at that time or any discussion that there would be a future addition of 9 units. And I didn't see anything in there that's saying, that it was discussed to say, hey, this is phase 1, then we're going to do phase 2. And it was all signed off on at one time. Is that correct?
Yes.
That just 9 units were signed off? I think actually 8 units were paid for, if I read the sewer tap application correctly.
It's a connection fee, what he paid, because he paid for the sewer line and the tap and
Right.
all the extension. And what he paid for is an extension to tie on to the city sewer, because on our tap request, it has a place on there, if you tie on to any city-funded sewer, you have to pay a connection fee, even if you do the labor and the product yourself.
So what does it mean when it says 16 units?
Do what now?
What does that mean when it says 16 units right there?
Oh,
Tap fee.
That's how many units was gonna be tied on to
Okay.
this connection.
But it ended up being 18. Is that correct?
Is there 9
It's
buildings?
9
or-
unit. I don't know how it
Is
becomes
there
6.
9 buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I
it's
don't know how
18
come.
units, so it's 18.
18.
18 units.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how it comes 16 up there, but
Yeah.
Is he planning on stopping at 9 more, or does he have plans for many more?
I'm planning 2 more, 18.
More?
18 more.
But
In
once you
addition-
put this 18 in, is that the end of your property?
That's the end of the property, yes.
And
Which
I knew-
is,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, that's a 5-acre tract, correct?
Yes, sir.
The total tract, including the 9 that's there and the 9 you're wanting to add. If you did not have access to city sewer, then by DEQ standards, you could only put, maybe 10?
Yes.
Or probably less than 10, because they require a half acre, and you would have to have infrastructure as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And I guess one of the issues I have, I know city staff approved you to do the 9 last fall, is right across the street, and adjacent to your property are some relatively nice homes sitting on larger tracts of land. And what you have done and what you're proposing to do is compact that down, which would not be allowed if you did not have city sewer. You would have to be on 1/2 acre tracts, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's like 18 units, are they? 18 units.
That's correct.
18 units.
And because of that, I don't feel like the city's being, I mean, we're giving him premium service, saving it a lot of money, we're not being compensated as much as we should be.
Also, for clarification purposes, when we had the hearing where we passed the, and I can't remember if it was a resolution or an ordinance earlier this year.
Ordinance, yeah.
I believe I asked a question at that time, were there any more out there that we were aware of? And at that time, I believe that the former city manager stated the only one that we were aware of, and that individual had actually paid for their sewer tap a year prior, was Mr. Hall.
Yes,
on the opposite end of Remington Hills. Am I understanding that correctly,
Yes.
that that was the only one? Okay.
That's the only one I was aware of.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I mean, and I'm not picking on anybody, I just feel like we can only provide a little bit of service, but we're not, that service should be worth more because we're not selling any water or any trash service.
And not always getting our money for the sewage.
Right, right. Now, with you, these are rental units and, you know, well, I guess we could shut you off and you'd have a real problem if you don't pay. I understand you're paying, you know, and there's not a problem with collecting or anything like that. I just feel like, we're able for you, if we take it, you can maximize the number of units you put on there. And therefore, that should be worth a premium to the city for taking your sewer.
Do we charge anything extra on a sewer bill since they're not hooked to water?
No.
Is there not anything added to it?
You know, when we made that ordinance for no county property.
I thought it was 1.5%, like 1.5 times instead of one.
I think it is 1.5, but I
Yeah.
don't feel like that's enough.
No, I understand that.
I know the ordinance was made for new accounts and new places.
'Cause I thought-
That's the reason, you know, it's an existing account, but it's also new buildings. That's the reason I was like, this needs to go before the council. And
I don't think it's a matter of whose account it was. We did the ordinance because we didn't want new houses in the county hooked up to our sewage system. Is the way I interpreted that, and that's why I voted on it.
We've also
You
got a
don't
lot
have
of.
a copy of that? I just don't know if it was worded like that, or if it was worded that no new service, or I don't know if it's per unit or how it's determined in that resolution.
And
It
that's the
was,
reason.
to my knowledge, it was worded that there would be no one hooked on to city sewer unless they came before the council and got special permission.
And that's the reason I was like, this is, you know, I know it's an existing service,
Right. But it's not, or
new units,
18
so
new
it
units.
needs to be brought before the council.
Well, I think that was smart.
Yeah.
I know the cost of, putting an aerobic system in and the monthly maintenance cost on an aerobic system is much, much more than what we're collecting for sewer service.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know what his cost was to extend that line, because I know he had to go and get probably
Much
half
less
a
than
mile, a quarter of a mile.
putting aerobic system in on each one though.
You know, that's not even mentioning, look at the house across from those. I mean, the water runoff is a huge problem with that new development. And obviously, it would be made 2 or 3 times worse with the addition of 9 or 18 more units. So, that's an issue.
I guess part of the discussion too is the fact that people move outside of city limits because they typically have larger tracts of land that they're residing on, whether it's in a subdivision or not. Usually the minimum standard is a ½ acre for an aerobic system, more for a traditional septic. And all of those homes in that area, for the most part, are on larger parcels of land. And by you having the benefit of city sewer, then you are putting lesser sized homes adjacent to those properties. And I couldn't sit here and tell you what the financial impact of that could be on their property values. Now, I don't want to get into that, and that's not the purpose, but I think it has a direct impact on them and their decision that they built there first. And then it is the county that we don't control what happens in the county. But the minute we give you sewer access, then that allows you to drop below DEQ standards of the half acre. And just personally, I don't know that that's fair to surrounding property owners.
We just looked up in the cost for sewer residential, the first $2,009, and outside city limits, the first $2,017.95.
So how much?
$17.95. If they paid it. If they paid it.
Mm-hmm.
In an ideal world, if Rural Water 2 cooperated, we wouldn't have this problem.
Yes.
There, I see it. And it's true. Any more discussion?
Personally, Madam Mayor, I would like to know what the resolution said. That, you know, is it saying a new sewer tap or water meter, or is it saying a new service?
It said, Tom, did you find it?
No, I'm not fine. I can't remember exactly what meeting it was that we
It hasn't been that long ago.
And because these are duplexes, is that 8 or 9 connections and bills, or is that a billing for each unit in the duplex?
No, that's one connection, and I'm the paying for the whole thing.
So how many are you paying for? Are you paying for 9, or are you paying for
Yeah, I'm
6,
paying for what I have.
18 times 17.
I'm paying whatever we have already, 18 apartments.
So on the connection, it's the extension of the line as far as that goes, because it's a private line that he's tied
But
into
for
now.
billing purposes,
Yeah.
the Real Water won't tell us how much water they're using. We're guessing, so, I mean.
I know
That would be my question, is that, do you, for the duplexes, for the 18 units, do you have 18 accounts with Rural Water or one?
One.
Okay, and so you'll continue to have one account with Rural Water?
Yes.
You'll just use more water?
Yes.
I know his sewage bill has been running between $280 and $500 a month, from what I could see from the history of payments on it.
That is with 18 units.
Yes.
Costs you a lot more than that if you're having to take care of aerobic systems.
I know.
Put them in and everything. A lot more. Yeah.
Well, I don't mind to pay whatever city costs me, you know.
So is the issue now, he's asking for 9 more?
Yeah.
No.
No.
9 more, period.
No.
Yeah, it's just
18.
9 more buildings and 18 units in those 9 buildings.
It didn't say anything about a tap.
No.
It just said you couldn't hook up to our city sewage. It was pretty just basic.
Because 9 more buildings they put on the existing line. Why don't I have to say?
I'm not seeing what
Did you see that
the
number?
resolution says.
Tom's looking
I
for
know,
it. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, you don't have to add on to that.
It was right when Buddy Holder was fixing to start building, whenever that was, because he come in. It hadn't been long ago.
I think it was back, if I can remember, I think it was like August or September last year.
I don't think it was that long.
It wasn't that long ago?
I don't think so.
But it might have been December. I don't think it was 3 or 4 months ago.
If I put all these signals, you got 1,000 to 1,500 on the store.
Right, yeah.
And while we may have a real good relationship with you, you may decide to sell and we don't have the same good relationship.
If you sell it to someone else.
We have no control over that.
I'm not planning to sell it.
As far as collecting the bill, I mean, collecting what's owed us. I mean, and that's a problem. I mean, you know, if the rural water was more accommodating and helpful to us, it would be probably a little bit less issue.
Right.
If the authority wants to table this matter and go on to the next agenda item, I'm happy to continue to look for that resolution, because I've looked back through the DCUA agenda and I can't find it. If it was, I don't remember if that was a council matter, that we may have taken it up in the council meeting, but I'll continue to look for it. Otherwise, I don't have it in front of me.
So we can table this and go on into executive session and then come back to this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when you come back into regular session, you. Yeah, there's another item.
Okay. All right, let's table this. If you gentlemen don't mind, let's table this and we let our city attorney research and then we'll come back to this. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, we will table that item.
Well, that's what I was looking under.
Do we
I
need to
didn't
vote
see
on
it
that
under
now?
utilities.
Let's just table it for now.
No, you can table.
Okay, we'll go to item B, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a quote on transfer trailers for the landfill that is above the approved amount in the capital improvement budget. That will be a no action. Item 6, executive session. Consider entering into executive session to discuss the purchase of real property interest along Cemetery Road and Rodeo Road permitted under 25 OS 307B3. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have, would the secretary please record the vote?
Trustee Brittingham.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Morris.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Aye.
Chairman Groby.
Aye. We're now headed into executive session. writing that. We're back. Do we have a motion that we come back into session? Please, somebody.
I make a motion, we're back in session.
Second.
Second. Oh, you seconded.
Secretary, please call the roll. Or take the vote. I'm tired, y'all.
Trustee Brittingham?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Here.
Trustee Morris?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Shear?
Aye.
Chairman Groby?
Aye. We're back in session. Number 6, B, consider action pursuant to executive session item 6A.
I make a motion, we allow staff to enter into negotiations between the city and property owners over the water easement at the specified locations.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Would the secretary record the vote?
Trustee Brittingham?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Morris?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Shear?
Aye.
Chairman Groby?
Aye. Motion carries. We will now go back to item, bear with me everybody. Item 4A, under the Utility Authority, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a sewer line extension.
I have one question for Randy.
Yes.
Is the existing connection adequate for the additional load 9 more units would put on it?
It is, and with the with the lift station being rebuilt in 2019, 2020, it was rebuilt in consideration of future expansion.
I have a clarification question.
Yes, sir.
September 2021, the receipt was issued for the sewer tap, the original sewer tap, for the 9 existing buildings.
Yes.
All right. And then when was the construction completed on the 9 existing buildings?
September last year.
September.
By this time last year.
Okay. And so, September of 21?
Yes.
Okay. And then the council passed a resolution that we previously discussed before we tabled and came back in February of 2022, just for clarification.
Discussion?
I'll comment that after rereading this resolution, I'm really not opposed to approving the connection. I'm just speaking for myself, with some kind of caveat that that's all, that no future structures could be added to that, in that division.
Any other discussion? Any questions, guys? Are we ready to call for a motion?
that a call for the motion? After my last statement, I will make the motion to approve the extension of the sewer line.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? One more time. Do we have a second? Motion fails, no second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
A motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would the secretary please record the vote?
Trustee Brittingham?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Morris?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Shear?
Aye.
Chairman Groby?
Aye. We are now adjourned. Okay, these guys. Oh, God. You poor thing.